Hello, welcome back to Lojban Is Too Easy. In this series of lessons, I'm teaching you about the logical language, Lojban. How is it logical? Well, every language has logic in it, but the way Lojban is extra logical is that it's extra clear which thing is which. If you make it very clear which word is what word, how the words connect, then when you say something logical, you can understand exactly what's being said. And that clarity allows for lots of interesting stuff, but probably not the stuff you expect. Because you're used to language being a thing where you walk on a very narrow and well-worn path. And Lojban is more exploring into a jungle of nebulous, curious possibilities. So far we've learned E. It separates off the sentences so you can be clear where the sentences are. We tags something. The thing immediately before it gets tagged, and you can tell exactly what is tagged and what you're saying that you're happy about by saying we, because of the structure you can tell what you're happy about. Landme is a verb meaning sheep. T means the thing I'm pointing to. Shadsu means to walk on a surface using limbs. Ohu means I feel relaxed about that. Srasu means some grass. Mi means me. Shitka means to eat something. Lo makes something into a noun. So now we have nouns. Shu means verb coming up. Klama means to go to somewhere from somewhere via somewhere in something. Oi means ow. Trishu means tree. Jipshi means chicken. Zdani means house. And then we were really just learning a bunch. We could just go on learning barnyard animals and stuff, but we decided to take I got bored, and we took a little bit of a turn into talking about words with Zo, a word that quotes a word and makes a noun saying this word. Like Zozdani means the word zdani, not a house, but the word zdani. Zozdani. Now, next we're going to learn the word valsi, which is a verb meaning to be a word. I thought that would be useful since we have zo now, that we need some, and we can one thing we could already do with zo is we can make nonsense. And Lojban is so good for nonsense. It's shockingly good for nonsense, because it turns out in English, a lot of the way you make sense of things in English is by making sense. You can just tell that something doesn't, you're like, wait, what does that mean? That doesn't make sense. So that can't be it. And that's like how you figure it out, is by making it make sense. You just wait until you keep figuring it out different ways until you put it together a way you're like, okay, that makes sense, so that could be the meaning. And that means you can accidentally make sense when you're trying to nonsense. Like, all right, so far we can make a noun meaning a word, and so we can make perfectly sentences like zo we lanme. The word we is a sheep, which you can say that in English. I just did, but in English it's much more dangerous in English, because you will accidentally make sense. Like you'll say the word yay is a sheep, and the person you're talking to will say, oh, it's a sheep, like you mean the linguistics term, right? Like SHIIP, and it's an acronym for it. No, I just mean that the word is a sheep. I was trying not to make sense. And sense is always accidentally always there, because all the words have a bunch of different meanings, and all the grammar could flow all different ways, and the way that it does flow is determined by what makes enough sense. So I don't know what you were expecting to be able to say better now that you speak Lojban, but it turns out one of the main things you can say way better is nonsense. It turns out it's really good for expressing how you feel about things as you talk about them, because you can be very clear about which things you're talking about, how you feel about them. And it's also super clear if you want to say nonsense, as opposed to English, well, you just really wants you to make sense, and it's sort of mad at you when you make nonsense. But Lojban's just like, that's cool. Zo we lan me. So we take the word we, and the word we is a sheep. Got it? It puts together the nonsense meaning for you with a lot of clarity. So, what we can do now with I thought not, other than just saying nonsense, we should also as well as saying nonsense, we should also have a word that we can use with zo, and it will make sense. So we're going to learn valsi to be a word that makes sense with, we can just use zo on any word that we know so far and make a good sentence. Iti lan me, this is a sheep. Izo lan me valsi, the word lan me is a word. Izo ti valsi, izo I valsi, I ti lan me, I mi shadzu, izo shadzu valsi, I mi klama lo jipshi, izo jipshi valsi, izo lo valsi. So the word lo is a word, zo lo valsi. Imi klama lo jipshi, I go to a chicken. Imi klama lo shadzu jipshi, I go to a walking chicken. I zo shadzu valsi, the word shadzu is a word. Izo valsi balsi, the word to be a word is a word. It's Lojban. Some of the hardest things about Lojban are if you have to translate from Lojban into English. I'll be going along just innocently speaking Lojban, and then Egypti chicken, imiklama lo gypsy, ilo gypsy shuklama mi, ilo gypsy shuklama mi. The chicken goes to me. Izo klama valsi. The word klama is a word. So I'll just be going along innocently speaking Lojban and then let me explain this to you, chicken. I'll just be going along speaking Lojban, and then someone will say, can you translate that into English? And I'm like, because, like, I mean, now that with what we've learned so far, you can understand how it's perfectly normal, sensible Lojban to say, Lo jipshi jipshi shu klama klama. And then someone's like, could you translate that into English? And then you have to be like, the chicken type of chicken, goingly goes. Lo jipshi jipshi shu klama klama me. What did I say? I said, the chicken type of chicken going type of goes to me. And then once you translate it to English, you feel like you've said something strange or that needs explaining. But while you're speaking Lojban, you're just like, chipshi chipshi, I valsi valsi, izo valsi, valsi valsi. Now translate that. What does that mean? It means the word valsi is a word in a way that is word related. I guess. But it's a perfectly, it just mean, I mean, I zo valsi, valsi valsi. Sure, it's a wordy word. Of course, word is a wordy word. Why not? So there you go. Now you know the word valsi, and you can say all sorts of sensible things and nonsensible things. Like you can say, Lo jipshi shu valsi. The chicken is a word, which Lojban is also really good at metaphors, because because you can use things metaphorically in Lojban will generally indicate if it's a metaphor, and because it can be nonsense as far as its literal meaning and still hold together properly, it allows you to use things as metaphors in a much cleaner way. So it's so simple and clean and easy. And one of the hardest things about Lojban is if you ever have to translate it into English. And so that's why a lot of people have trouble learning Lojban, because they're trying to make it easy for themselves by making it familiar, by thinking in terms of English and translating it into English. But that doesn't even make it easier. English is fine, but it's so different than Lojban. Gypsy, ilo gypsy shuklama mi. Ilo gypsy shuklama klama mi. Izo gypsy shuvalsi valsi. You don't need because Zo just eats the one word and doesn't want to make a just makes a noun out of that, and it doesn't want to combine with anything after it doesn't make it into a verb so that it would want to stack with other verbs and stick to other verbs that are around. So chickens that I'm explaining this to, so it's, you don't need a shoe pretty much ever, I think, after you say so and then another word to quote the word and make a talking about a word. So you're not gonna so you don't. I just said shoe. You can say zo gypsy shu valsi. I zo valsi shu valsi. I zo gypsy shu valsi. But the shoe is optional there, because it's not going to be unclear that you're starting the verb when you start saying the verb, because the thing that the quote that you make with zo is totally just a noun. Zo gypsy is just a noun meaning the word gypsy. And it doesn't mean the word chicken. It only means exactly the word gypsy, only exactly the word you quote. If I say zo gypsy, that means exactly that word, Jipci, gypsy, and not any other word. Which I don't. I think in English, if you try to start to quote a word, you can probably totally mean a different word, right? Like you can say like the word chicken in Lojban, and then you said the word chicken, but you meant gypsy, which is remarkable. English is an amazing language, but in Lojban it's simple as can be. Zo gypsy always means gypsy, and you can't say like zo gypsy in English. It would be like, what? Gypsy isn't a word in English. You would have to say like a parallel word in English or something, because that's right. Would you like to come live at this zdani? Would you like this to zdani you? Iti zdani lo gypsy. Iti zdani lo gypsy. This is a house for chickens. I gypsy zdani, chicken house. I zdani, izo zdani valsi. This is a house, and the word zdani is a word. So we got all the different levels of reality we got to keep straight, whether things are real or metaphor, fantasy or reality, fiction or non-fiction, words or the things the words describe. So that can get complicated if you're careful about it. But it's easy enough to get started. We're just saying the word whatever is a word. Izo zo valsi. The word zo is a valsi. Is a word. Izo zo valsi. Zo is a word.